You should know what song that is. Welcome. This is Rudy Reyes, South Florida Tribune. This is Motorman and RudeDog. And, of course, with me and who is more than capable of talking about any topic you may be able to find out there in the sports world, Scott Morganroth, Motorman and RudeDog at Take No Punches live on Facebook. Scott, good morning. How are you?
Doing great, Rudy. Glad to do a little bit earlier. Good stuff. Anytime I'm on the air with you, it's always a blast. So this time, instead of I have you instead of the Diet Coke.
Well, you know, I actually am worth a lot less calories and a lot less sugar or saccharin. Or pick your poison. Thanks for coming on. I definitely appreciate it. I definitely wanted to thank everybody out there for tuning in. Again, we're Facebook Live, so feel free to chime in, comments, questions, anything you might have about tonight's game. I'll be happy to answer those for you. Again, this is at Take No Punches. Give us a follow. Throw us a follow. Show us some love. We definitely appreciate you guys in every single way, so thanks for coming on. Got a great show lined up for you tonight. And, of course, as you can see, I am wearing Steelers gear because this is a game of to kick off Week 11. Steelers take on the Browns tonight at obviously in Cleveland on the road. It could be a snow game. I've seen a lot of Steelers players wearing their headgear, their beanies, and everything else. And of course, I'll be on the road for tonight's game. I won't be able to watch the game. Sadly, I know I'm crying inside. Can you tell? So Scott, a lot of great things to really put into this matchup tonight against the Browns. These two teams are pretty well equalized when it comes to offensive production between what Baker Mayfield is doing. And little glimpses, of course, for Browns fans, this probably could not be a better matchup for them. However, Steelers are winners of 4 in a row. Browns did win their very last game. Not very convincingly, but look, a win is a win regardless. What is your key to tonight's game for the Browns? Does Baker Mayfield need to get involved? Is it all on the defense? Who is the playmaker for the offensive and or defensive side of the ball for the Browns?
Oh, Baker Mayfield needs to live up to his number one pick in the draft status. All he's done is proven that he can go out there and do commercials and talk and not let his actions speak louder than his words. So he needs to get it figured out. And just so you know, Rudy, the Steelers and the Browns are getting together tonight for the 135th time. So they're renewing their deep disdain for each other in front of a national TV audience and what would have been expected season for both these two teams. 135 times playing between these two. Unreal. But Baker Mayfield needs to kick it in gear. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that his last sack was overly that impressive. What did he do? Beat Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills in Cleveland in a 19-16 thriller? Not.
No, not at all. And I think Baker Mayfield, but again, this season for him hasn't been kind of what you would think. He's averaging career-wise, 36 touchdowns, not being the kind of guy that, I mean, an overall 26 interceptions, 9 touchdowns, and 12 this season alone. Fantasy guys, you probably need to just sit Baker Mayfield and start Mason Rudolph, who's actually on fire for the Steelers' offense right now. But the targets haven't been there for guys like Juju Smith-Schuster, but they have been there for guys like James Washington, despite a drop last week. He had a touchdown. Big plays, splash plays, and this actually renews a different rivalry in the sense that Baker Mayfield played for Oklahoma and Mason Rudolph played for Oklahoma State. These guys were competitors in the same division for a few years, and of course one got picked overall. The other one just barely got picked at all by the Steelers, but I think overall when you look at the types of completions for Mason Rudolph, his comfort under the pocket, outside of the pocket, being the guy that the Steelers needed to step up after losing Ben Roethlisberger to season-ending injury. They trade off Antonio Brown in the offseason. Le'Veon Bell, who hasn't had as many touchdowns as Mason Rudolph has as far as throwing them into the end zone. Should Mike Tomlin be in the conversation for head coach of the year, at least in the top 5 coaches in the NFL?
Why do you keep reading my mind, Reyes? I don't get it, dude. But you do. Yeah, of course he should, Rudy. I mean, think about it for a second, man. They wiped out a 1-4 start. You lose Antonio Brown, and then you lose Le'Veon Bell. And this guy here for a moment, although I don't think there's anything called a hot seat with Pittsburgh since they've only had, 3 coaches in many people's lifetimes. So, of course he should. here's a team that is overachieved with a backup quarterback for a guy that replaced a Super Bowl winning quarterback. I agree. I mean, think about it. You're talking about two teams when you look at record-wise, Rudy. The Browns are 3-6, have more national television appearance than imaginable against a team like the Steelers, who are 5-4, that have had a lot of things go wrong. But yeah, they're in the thick of it. How far they go in the playoffs, anybody's guess. But getting to the playoffs, to me, would be quite an accomplishment for that iconic franchise. I agree with you there, Rudy.
Well, I look at this as being a relatively high-scoring event. I really don't know that Baker Mayfield, despite all the offseason hype, and, we could probably talk another hour in regards to all these analysts thinking that they look great on paper, but that's on paper. They have all the pieces of the puzzle on paper, but it's still on paper. Offensively, getting guys in there to be those playmakers that truly need them to act every single down as if they're catching a Super Bowl winning catch. It just hasn't been there. Yes, Landry's been there, and of course you have OBJ. And what's really interesting about this offensive core for the Browns is that the kind of antics we've seen from OBJ that were witnessed in New York have not been the same in the Cleveland Browns system. And I think he's starting to realize, maybe wake up and check off the box and say, I'm no longer a narcissist, and turn into an actual team player for this Browns club, to accept the wins and accept the loss. Of course, they've had more losses than they've had wins, but you don't see the antics. What do you think helped him flip the switch this season with the Browns than when what we've seen at the Giants proved to his demise as they decided to trade him in the offseason?
I'm glad you asked me that question. You know why you don't see the annex, Rudy? Nobody cares in Cleveland. They really don't. I mean, really. Lake Michigan versus Manhattan, really? Nobody's paying attention to a Big Apple versus Mistake by the Lake. Nobody cares. You're playing for the Cleveland Browns, one of two teams, franchises that's 0-16. One of two. Don't want to mention the other one. It hurts. But
the 0-9 Bengals, that'd be the other one in the AFC North, not doing so well either.
Well, it's true. They're on the path. So, no, you don't see a lot of it. I think he's probably part of his maturity a little bit. He's working with a younger quarterback versus when he had Eli Manning. And maybe that thing called aging, maturing does help Odell Beckham Jr. I'll give him that. But I think the one thing we can't lose sight of, Rudy, is the key for Cleveland will be ball security. The Steelers are second in the league with 26 takeaways, the most for a Pittsburgh team through 9 games since 1987. And I think the other thing you should remember about as well is that Baker Mayfield hasn't thrown a pick in 2 games after having a league high 12 through 7. So he's certainly not turning the ball over, which helps. It keeps you in games. But I think the one thing that I like about the Steelers, though, Rudy, is that during their win streak, they forced 14 turnovers with safety Minka Fitzpatrick returning 2 for touchdowns. And Fitzpatrick came over in a trade with the Miami Dolphins and has already had 5 interceptions and a fumble recovery in 7 games. The Dolphins get the draft choice, but the Steelers have paid some immediate dividends with that trade. And don't forget that Devin Bush is on that team too. So, there are a lot of interesting parts that most people don't realize. So to make a long story short, anytime that Baker Mayfield can go ahead and not turn the football over, at least, the Browns have a puncher's chance. Now, are they at 3-6 too deep in the hole to be able to make a playoff run? Probably. Will that save Freddie Kitchens' job? Probably not. But Baker Mayfield, and I have Bill Winters on the program a lot, says the same thing. He said, Baker, keep your mouth shut, let your playing do the talking. Is really what it comes down to.
Well, playing from an executable standpoint, look, all the numbers point to the Browns side of the ball offensively. But what's really glaring to me is the Steeler defense, because they've had 33 sacks to the Cleveland Browns 11 sacks. You're talking about Minka Fitzpatrick, interviewed in 2018 as he was drafted by the Dolphins. And I thought to myself, gosh, a Bama guy going to the Dolphins, what a waste. Didn't play him in a natural position in the quarterback's position. They played him in the safety position. So that just allowed him from being able to show his athleticism and the types of athleticism that will allow for you to create great film to make those impact plays. That stuff didn't happen in Miami, but it's happening in Pittsburgh. Why? Because he's able to play his natural position. He showed it at Bama, and he's showing it with the Steelers. Now, defensively, the Browns don't look very good. They have guys like Grady Jarrett or Myles Garrett, and they have so many Jarrett, take your pick. But defensively, the Browns just have not lived up to the expectations on that side of the ball. I kept saying this, and I'm going to continue to say Greg Williams deserved to stay as a head coach for Cleveland, which have been the best possible bet for this organization. Now, yet again, Freddie Kitchens, just like every other past Browns head coach, and I'm going to repeat that, every past Browns head coach, maybe for the exception of one or two in their history as an organization, have not been able to keep a coach longer than 3 seasons. So Freddie Kitchens is one of the guys that will also be sent packing. They're going to get somebody who's younger. They're going to get somebody who's more in tune with the quarterback situation there with Baker Mayfield to be complimentary of who Baker Mayfield is. I'm not going to suggest Baker Mayfield is a guy who knows how to keep his mouth shut, because clearly that's not the case. And he continues not to be that guy. What he needs to be is the guy that goes out there and executes on every given down between checkdowns. Right. He needs to follow his reads, follow his progressions, make sure that he's a guy under center moving forward for this Browns franchise to help them gain those wins, those much needed, necessary, vital wins. Right now, the only way that the Browns could do any damage is by being the spoiler to all these various teams that they're playing against. However, this is a very tightly contested AFC North. The only team ahead of the Steelers right now is Baltimore, who keeps winning. Why? With the spectacular play of the one and only Lamar Jackson. I also interviewed Lamar, who was picked the same exact time that Minkah Fitzpatrick was, and the moniker, the statement, the continuity, the feeling from Lamar Jackson is at least he didn't get picked in the second round. And he's right. He's a first-round talent, and everybody say, well, maybe he should convert to wide receiver. And I just thought to myself, what? He won a Heisman. You're going to stick a Heisman Trophy winner in the wide receiver position? That's absolutely asinine. And I think that you can look forward to him performing that much better. But with that being said, Steelers have an uphill battle in regards to very tightly contested AFC North club. Defensively for the Steelers, I think the impact player clearly is going to be Minkah Fitzpatrick, but it's going to be up front. Up front, you have T.J. Watt, co-sack leader Bud Dupree. This is a contract year for him. Bud Dupree is making a case to be there through 2022, 2023, at least, as long as he continues with that type of production, being the ball hawk that we've seen in Kentucky. That defensive line in Kentucky was absolutely stout. He's like the breadwinner for that line, but he had a lot of great help on that line. He has a lot of great help on this Steelers front line as well with Stephon Tuitt. Unfortunately, he's out with the torn pectoral, but he has guys like Cam Hayward who continues to stuff the run, cloud those pockets up. We're not going to allow at least 120 rushing yards by this Browns team who can't seem to get off the ground when they need to. However, with guys like Bradley Chubb, who just continues to impress, and I love watching him play. I'm a player fan. I don't know if anybody can say that, but I'm a player fan. I like watching great players make great plays regardless of the organization. But my bet tonight, as everybody should know, has got to be the Steelers. My impact player offensively has got to be Mason Rudolph. He has to get that down. He's feeling more comfortable. He had a post practice conversation with the Pittsburgh media. I had a chance to watch that. And a lot of things, a lot of mature conversation components in regards to how he's growing, what he's doing, how he needs to get it done continuously, and just to continue in improving, regardless whether he throws interceptions or not. You have to have a short memory. Who's your impact player for the Browns tonight as the Steelers go into Cleveland to take on the Browns?
Let me address that for a moment, but you said a couple things that I'd like to respond to, okay? Number one, I've said it on numerous radio shows, Rudy, that Greg Williams should have been the head coach. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Yeah.
You know, I've said that to a lot of people, NFL analysts, whoever was willing to listen to me. That, to me, was a big gaffe right there. Number two, when you talk about the Browns in general, they need to establish their running game. Nick Chubb is all well and good. If you're going to ask me for an impact player, Kareem Hunt's a guy that you better pay attention to. I really think you have to pay a lot of attention to. If they can get their ground game going, then you're not leaving Baker Mayfield in a situation where he's going to be forced to throw the football more than he has to do. Now, you talk about Lamar Jackson, okay? Bill Polian made the mistake saying he should have been a wide receiver.